you can't disciple an empty chair. We totally learned that. So we need to have attractional and good marketing practices so that we can let people know that we exist, that we're here, and this is a value that we can bring. But ultimately, it's about the congregation that invites and markets is much stronger than the congregation that only markets. So listen, I can market a congregation to a very large number of people. But if the congregation is not active in discipleship and invitation, it will shrink back down to where it was previous to the engagement with my company.
This is the Young Adults Today podcast. It's fall, y'all. That means pumpkin spice lattes. That means fall launches. That means starting up new young adult ministries. We pray they're successful. Let us give you a free resource. It's our ebook by Micah Keneally and I called 10 Steps to Starting a Successful Young Adult Ministry. It's free at the website, youngadults.today. Youngadults.today. The link is in the show notes to the free ebook, our gift to you. Thanks for listening to the Young Adults Today podcast. Again, that link to 10 steps to starting a successful young adult ministry is in the show notes. And this is a podcast on Young Adults Today where we talk about the faith of the next generation. We interview thought leaders, pastors, and authors, theologians, apologists, and generational researchers about the faith of the next generation. We're fanatical about reaching young adults in our world today. And we are joined by a guest on this conversation, Jon-Michael Sherman from Rocket Media. You'll want to listen to the end of this podcast because there's a free church plant masterclass as a gift from our friends at Rocket Media. Again, you'll want to stay to the end. We talk today with Jon-Michael about church planting, about technology, digital discipleship, and web presence, social media. It's an amazing conversation right here on Young Adults Today. Jon-Michael, can you just talk about some of your life story and journey and why you're passionate about the local church?
Yeah, so I'm a local church kid. My parents gave their life to Christ in a local church. I grew up as a church kid in the pews. That's the same place where I gave my life to Christ as a young 16-year-old kid when my pastor asked if anyone wanted to get saved, and I felt the conviction of the Holy Spirit in my church. From there, felt called into ministry. I was a part of a thriving college and young adult ministry at North Dakota State University. When I was a freshman, literally saw the group grow from 200 to 400 to 600 people, in a matter of a couple of years span, and make a huge impact. Then from there, started a young adult ministry at the University of Minnesota myself. So I was 19 years old, started preaching every week. Yeah. So that's when I launched it. I grabbed a few guys in a dorm room and said, let's start something. And they said, what's a small group? And I said, don't worry about it. Let's start tomorrow. And so went from a small group to a large auditorium in the medical section of the University of Minnesota, which is still going to this day. And so that did that in 19. Then from there, I said, hey, having young adults meeting on Thursday night and throughout the week isn't enough. Let's start a church at the University of Minnesota. So I did that when I was 24. I'm probably the youngest CMN ARC church planter at the age of 24, I would guess. And they'll probably never do that again, to be fair, because that's too young to plant a church, but that we did it anyway, which was awesome, and had some great success there, among international student ministry, the Thursday night college group, the small groups, the Sunday morning experience. I think, we probably had 300-400 people across like all those ministries, our Chinese student ministry, our Japanese student ministry that I oversaw during that period. So I have a huge passion for young adults and young adult ministry. It's incredibly important, and definitely miss it. We transitioned from there into my dad's business. So went in from ministry into marketing, right? Big change when we had a baby and made a big shift. Really enjoyed helping my dad with his company. And then from there, said, hey, can I mix marketing with mission, right? That's when I started my company, Rocket Media, starting helping my friends who are pastors market their churches. And so I've been doing that for about 7 years now, had great success. We invite about 1 million people to church every month, just with our Google Ad products that we manage. So what an exciting thrill it's been to be a part of, on the ground ministry, and now coming alongside some of the best churches in America and helping them market, which is fun. So that's me.
Amazing. The date was November 6th. The year was 2016. You had us. We were dating at the time. That is one of my favorite pictures of
Great
us
photo.
in St. Paul, right after preaching at the church that you had planted. And we've been, like I said, friends for more than a decade. And that was a fun, powerful Sunday. We saw people give their lives to Christ. And I mean, that is what it's all about. I want to drill down on something that you just glossed over. Inviting 1 million people a month to church. That's wild. And I mean, take a stab at church marketing for a second. What is Rocket Media? What do you do to help churches and nonprofits in the Google ad space? Maybe talk about the Google ad grant, take it whatever direction you want to go. But
Sure.
I mean, that's wild. 1 million
Yeah.
people invited to church every month.
It's fantastic. When you start your journey following Jesus and you say yes at the bottom, you don't know what the story is going to be, but you're just saying, hey, I'm going to go for it the rest of my life. Something I like to tell every pastor, because, my story is unique. I've been the guy, serving in the small group, the person parking cars in the parking lot, the guy preaching on the platform, the guy leading the team. Now I'm the guy who's coming alongside lots and lots of pastors over the US, helping them achieve their goals and dreams, flying in and spending time with them. I just want to say this: Oz Guinness has an incredible book, and I think he was a guest on your show, by the
He
way.
was great
He has
guest.
a
Brilliant.
fantastic concept about identity and your purpose and your calling, and being able to figure out the difference. So, like, hey, like in job role, really. So, like, your job may be this right now, but your identity is the same in Christ, and your purpose is the same in Christ. Like, those things don't change. So when I moved out of, hey, I'm preaching on a regular basis, to I'm helping many, many preachers, that was tough on me. I missed it. I missed being in the pulpit. But now in hindsight, I'm able to see, wow, my overarching purpose is to build a local church everywhere. And this new job role has been able to help me invite a lot of people to local churches all over the US, especially, Easter, which is a few weeks ago. And the stories we're able to hear from our clients saying, we just broke another record for Easter. We broke another record. That kind of stuff is exciting, because those are people finding Jesus Christ in the local church. And our company plays a small role in helping that happen. So I personally love what I get to do right now. It's really special. It's really unique. And so what do I say about marketing with pastors, right? Pastors assume three things right off the gate, and this is what gets them in trouble because of familiarity. They think, hey, everybody knows our church, everybody knows where our church is, and everyone knows why our church can add value to their life. But the reality is your area has no idea. They have no idea you exist. They have no idea what time you've got stuff, and they have no idea what kind of value you're going to add to their life. And if you did communicate that well, they forgot, because it was been about 10 minutes, and that's all it takes for people to forget now, because attention spans are short. So our job as a marketing agency is to get you in front of your city and saturate your market, and then discover who the most important demographic is inside your market. People are interested, and then keeping you in front of them on a regular basis so that they might convert and plan a visit and check you out this weekend. So that's primarily what we do as a marketing agency. We're full service, everything from Google to Facebook to Instagram to, website and beyond. But ultimately, the pastor's goal is our goal, which is more people finding Jesus Christ. So that's what we're trying to do and help happen.
Oh, I think that's so good and so fun to hear the stats and the fact that you're recognizing it's not just about getting numbers to the door, it's about winning souls to the kingdom. And I think in addition to that, I mean, you work with young adults, you've worked with lead pastors, you work with kind of everybody in between, from the marketplace ministry that you have been doing and developing to the on campus as a 19-year-old saying, hey,
right,
don't worry about what a life group is or what a small group is. Why do you believe that discipling the next generation is so vital in this day and age?
The discipleship is everything. Jesus literally told us that was our job, right? Go and make disciples. So what did we learn from the church growth movement? You can't disciple an empty chair. We totally learned that. So we need to have attractional and good marketing practices so that we can let people know that we exist, that we're here, and this is the value that we can bring. But ultimately, it's about the congregation that invites and markets is much stronger than the congregation that only markets. So listen, I can market a congregation to a very large number of people. But if the congregation is not active in discipleship and invitation, it will shrink back down to where it was previous to the engagement with my company. I've seen it happen many, many times. So we, as a marketing agency, actually come alongside a thriving discipling church. It just becomes exponential. Um, Great example. If you're to go invite your friend to come with you to church this weekend, they might say yes right there in that moment. They might. But you had better believe that once you're done having that conversation over lunch, they're pulling their phone out and checking out, what's this church? What do they believe?
Mm-hmm.
What's going on?
Mm-hmm.
And that's where Google ads come in and help assist the invitation. Also, when you've got mailers or billboards or whatever marketing product you're using with us, at some point they've got to get directions. So that's where Google ads come in again, where they need to find where to go. And, are you thinking about those things? So marketing is an assist to personal invitation. It's not, should we market or should we invite? It's always both and I think that's where a lot of pastors get in trouble. They think, well, we're an inviting church, we don't need to market. Well, your invitation would be even more maximized if you marketed with it. Where we get into trouble is where there's no discipleship happening. So can we just talk about like the landscape of the US right now? So like when I was a college pastor, we were kind of living in post millennial world where
Totally.
we've got, what's true is true for you, what's right for you is right for you. It's kind of this amalgamation of relativism, and so we're trying to give people an anchor to stand on with the scriptures and truth. And so, there's really, again, I have to say this to pastors that pastor young adults. You're not just like converting someone to Christ, you're also converting them away from a cult of their own. And the primary thing that came out of postmodernity, what we're living in right now, I believe, is pluralism.
Totally.
So everyone views themselves as God.
Mm-hmm.
So if you were to ask someone who is God, they would say, I'm God. I'm the arbiter of my own truth. I am the one who decides what is right and wrong. And so along with, you've got, that is the spirit of the age. So you have to actually actively convert people away from their own deity. Not easy to do, right? So like you have to chop them down, not their God, like them. So, okay, there's that happening. Then inside the local church, you have the deconstruction movement, which is, it's a misnomer. Deconstruction is not a new thing. It's an old German word from when the deconstructionist movement happened, when they said, hey, let's just take all the spiritual stuff out of the Bible, then let's make a more historical Jesus, not a spiritual Jesus, right? The modern deconstructionist movement is, I got my feelings hurt, my toe hurts, and now I don't want to go to church anymore. I'm a sad person. So anyway, that's kind of that movement right now. And but it's sort of like, but the reality is, with both people who are in the world outside of the church, people leaving the church and the deconstruction movement, their primary issue isn't with the pastor's a bad person, or I don't like this thing about mega churches. The primary issue they have is with God. So like, think about this for a second, okay? Who is the first deconstructionist? Who is the first person that had issues with God? It was Satan in the garden with Eve. So he goes like this, right? He makes them question what God said. He's like, hey, did God really say, this would happen? And then he says like, hey, you're gonna be, surely he won't be mad at you. And he says, hey, if you eat this apple, you're gonna be like God. So he takes them on the deconstruction journey, which is, let's question things that God said explicitly and relabel them as questionable. Then let's take away the concept of God's wrath or God's authority or God as authority. Then let's replace him as I'm authority, that I will be like God, that I can decide what's good and evil. So that is really the journey of culture and the deconstruction movement. And so that's the amalgamation of the young adult world right now. You've got kids that are fatherless, that have a problem with authority, that view themselves as authority, maybe as a protective mechanism, right? And so now as a young adult pastor, you've got to go into that and say, guess what? Like, you're not God. God is God, and this is his word. And so everybody likes the idea of like being forgiven by Jesus, right? Which is super important. But no one likes the idea of him becoming your Lord. And that's the point of death that has to happen. So just like bare bones, like let you see. So like as a college pastor, you guys are young adult pastors, a lot of young adult pastors who've been pastoring a long time, like I have. You watch kids that you led to Christ that did well in college, but then the debt hits and then real life hits and then pain hits and suffering hits, and you see them walk away from the faith. There's nothing more gut wrenching as a young adult pastor, is
Mm-hmm.
there? I mean, can you think of it? Even people that you've maybe even had on your staff that were just like they fell away, they became apostate, like what happened. And I just feel like if there's one thing that we can do is the way that people come to Christ is extremely important. Do you know what I'm saying? Like the
Mhm.
way that people come to Christ and the way that we communicate is really important. I think sometimes we, as young adult pastors, like, oh my gosh, like they're in the room, this is huge. But we have to remember that this is a message of come and die too, right? It's not just like,
Yeah.
hey, cool, I'm part of this cool feel good club. It's like, no, he's actually my Lord now. So that means I'm no longer God, which means he's the authority in my life and he dictates truth. This is a completely opposite concept to like everybody in the market right now, right?
Right.
So people are like, okay, what's the big change from marketing then and marketing now? Is not everybody's going to like you when you come to the market because, a lot of what Christ teaches and preaches is the opposite of what people want to do. Their own deity is challenged, right? So what do we see in the comment sections in marketing? It's a little bit meaner than it used to be, right? It's a little bit weirder. It's like, wow, people are really offended by this nice invitation to Easter. Like, that's so weird. Like, just chill out, man. So, but this is the landscape that we see right now. And it's really interesting. So you, again, like marketing, I have to say this, the reason I bring this up is you can't just do marketing and not understand your market. Like there
Right.
is a market, there's a thing you're placing the marketing inside of. So you have to kind of keep those things in mind. And what are you communicating?
Well, and we just had Dr. Rob Hoskins with One Hope last week on the show, and he was talking about Gen Alpha and some of the key traits. And what their global youth report found is that the predominant worldview of Gen Alpha, those born 2010 and later, is expressive individualism. So the whole point of what you just said of, self being God or self deciding who
Yep.
God is or what God is,
Mhm.
that is the reality of kind of 2024 and what we're living in
Right.
as Gen Z has emerged and now the arrival of Gen Alpha. And I would just say, like, props to the Gideons all those years
Mhm.
ago for putting a Bible in every hotel room.
Mm.
And I think that, I remember being on staff at a church 6, 7 years and change ago, leading a young adult ministry. And I was amazed by the number of people who visited. And we would just track, like, hey, where'd you come from? How'd you hear about us? Whether it was a card or we had those conversations. And the amount of people who were like, well, I'm new to the area, so I Googled church near me.
All the time. Yep.
And then the other thing is that what we see broadly with the churches that have a button that has a young adult on their website,
Yeah.
it just what it's saying is we're prepared for you to come. There's
Mhm.
a way for you to connect with the community once you come. And then on Google, when people are in that 18 to 30 demographic, that is going to help them find you nearby you.
Yeah.
But the other thought that I have on church marketing for a second, because we're talking a lot of different subjects that I'm having a fascinating conversation, but I was on staff at a church, Jon-Michael, that was probably 60 plus years old, now is creeping up on 70 years old. But all churches were once church plants. And I think my
Mhm.
encouragement for every pastor listening, for every young adult pastor listening, is no matter if you're 6 months old, 6 months away from launching, or a part of a community that's been reaching your community for 60 plus years, think like a church plant.
Totally.
If you can market like a church plant, if you can think like a church plant, even as a larger church or an older church, that's going to help you, the relevant word, but it's going to help you stay relevant and in front of people and reach people in your community. But what would you say in response to that? Should churches think like a church plant? Should pastors think like a church plant? And maybe what are a couple things that every leader listening could learn from the way that a church plant builds community, has a digital presence, and approaches social media?
Yeah, it's a lot of questions at once. I would say this, frankly, like
I did that on purpose, but
I know it's just so I could go a zillion directions. Here's the direction I'll go. Um, every church should just engage in marketing, period. I mean, again, like a website that communicates what you value to an outsider, Google ads that are driving traffic. I encourage doing paid ads, not the grant. The reason why I encourage not the grant is because the grant is not allowed to compete against paid players in your city. You should be the paid player in your city. That's why we're the number one Google ad agency in the country, because
that's
we
awesome.
make sure our clients win. So
Yeah.
that's another just nugget for you. So yeah, I mean, church planters, they've got an entrepreneurial spirit. They've got a founder mentality. They're going to be the ones that are always after more people, searching after the one. They're ones that aren't getting comfortable where they're at, but always pursuing things. But like, let's just talk about the two streams of coaching right now. There's the build well side, where I kind of live in that world where I'm trying to help people break growth barriers and get to the next level. There's the be well guys that you have in your podcast, where it's like, hey, listen, you can actually break your soul if you build too fast. And so you need to be well. That's important. But I think let's go back to the key term that you brought up, was discipleship. What was the most successful young adult church in the past, I don't know, 10 to 20 years? Hillsong, New York City, easily. That thing grew to 5,000-6,000 people. I mean, that was a massive young adult church. That's what it was. It was, if I was there, I don't know if you guys were ever part of it or went to
Yeah, we both visited.
It was absolutely remarkable, right? But again, when the leadership transition took place, it shrunk down to 100 people. I mean, at one point there were maybe 115. Now the new leader came in, they're up to 3 services. Things are happy and great now, which is awesome. Ooh, yay, God, redemption story. But, again, what would have kept that thing from dropping to 100 people? We all know it, it's discipleship, right? So you can market a thing and grow a thing and break barriers, but if your soul is broken, like, what did you do? Like, and then if you didn't disciple, it's not going to sustain, right? So, like the principle about wealth that is in the scripture, the Bible says, little by little, he makes it grow. There's nothing wrong with steady, boring marketing. Boy, what an exciting guy I am. So when we do ads for our company, I don't like, wow, I promise you're going to have all these new people and this is going to blow up. And like all the marketing guys that in the church space do it. I don't do that. Let me tell you why. Because like, why? Like, if God gave you 300 more people tomorrow, how's your soul after that? Can you handle it? Can you disciple it? Because sometimes it's just little by little, he makes it grow, and steady, solid marketing is part of that journey. So, there's nothing wrong with, hey, we're up 15% year on year. Woo, yay, God, that's awesome. Let's keep going. That's a great clip, actually. So, like, hey, and guess what? We've got more people in life groups this year on year, than we did last year, right? Wow, that's a huge thing. Can marketing help be part of that? Absolutely. So we like to celebrate the big explosive growth stories, but sometimes the best marketing is, hey, 3-4 new families came this weekend. Yes, that's awesome. Because it used to be 0 new families coming. So can we get to that? Can we look at that and see how that goes? So no digs on big explosive growth, because I have a lot of clients with big explosive growth, which is awesome. But I'm just saying, like, let's just think about this strategically and how we want to map out things moving forward. Sometimes just steady growth is the best growth.
That's so good. And I think what we've realized, even with multiple people that we've talked about young adult ministry with, or explosive ministries or campus ministries, is if you, like, behind every marketing, ad or whatever you have, there needs to be a system and strategy in place. Because if it does explode 300 and it's not Easter weekend, what does that mean? What does that look like? If 50 people decide they want to get water baptized, do we have the staff to say, hey, we each get 10 people? Like, even just thinking in the systems and strategies, which I think of it as a system and strategy, is kind of like the skeletal framework that can hold the meat on the bone, that can sustain what God is wanting to do. So when discipleship comes and enters, it's like, wow, I think for me, it's just like discipleship's just skin on the bones. Marketing is a tool, and the systems and strategies help hold things together, because there's a process that needs to take place, and there's people that you're hiring and people that you're transitioning and people, I love the book, Good to Great. It's like, get the right people on the bus and let's figure out what seat they're sitting in. If they got to get off, then man, there's another bus waiting for you at the truck stop. Like, hop off our
Right.
bus and jump on somebody else's. So when it comes to just like your church marketing masterclass, when you're planting churches, what is the best advice for somebody who wants to plant a church that might be in the beginning stages?
Yeah, I think the most important place to start is to get a team around you. So you are the product, unfortunately, at the beginning of your church plant, because people aren't buying a church experience for the first 18 months. They're actually buying you. So it's a good idea if the best version of you is going out there and inviting people to be a part of something. So I encourage everybody to have the build well coaches that are helping you. Hey, we were successful recently. So the guys that within the last 5 years have had good success, those are the people you need. You need guys that are a little bit further down the road, the fathers that can help speak into your life, the people that are probably going to parent you. That's going to be an important person, your parent. I would even say if you're not going to be parented, wait until you are parented. If we're going to teach that fatherlessness is a bad idea from the pulpit, let's start that way when we plant our church. I don't think it's a good idea to go orphan when you go start a church. I would also say you need thumbs up. You need I would say like you need a counselor, a biblically based counselor to help your
Yeah.
mental health.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I'm not talking betterhealth.com. I'm sorry if they sponsor the pod, but I mean like a legit Christian, okay? Like
Mhm.
somebody who's not
Mhm.
gonna take you down the road of deconstruction, but take you down the road of like life and
Yeah.
help you understand. Listen, everybody's gonna have fatal flaws in their leadership and their planting. You just need to be aware of it so that you can manage it, so that your team is aware of it, your wife is aware of it, so that you know what is going to harm you in the process, so that you're going to make it right. So you need that too.
Mhm.
So I would say building your team. In fact, we have a whole course on how to build that team. But that's step one. Step two is you actually need to have a plan. I think most people's plans are too short. I think they need to lengthen their plans. I think also number three, because of inflation, frankly, the cost of planting a church has gone up significantly, and the access to resources is limited. So I would say to raise more money, take more time. That's going to be super unpopular, but it's true. The guys that take more time to raise more money tend to do better. So I would just say there is no rush. They are just as excited to listen to you preach for the first time as you are. So, which is exciting, and that's why that pre-launch team is so special. Like they're signing up for you and your wife and the idea of your church before it's ever started, which is pretty cool, pretty neat. So, anyway, that's what I would say to a church planter. You need to be part of a network. You need to jump in. You need to do the work. You need to have a parent. And you need to be able to have enough people to raise money from that you can pay for it. And so if you don't, then slow it down, get on staff somewhere and
Yeah.
see if they might parent you in 2 or 3 years.
Yeah.
Not a church that's never had a kid before. Very different. A lot of churches have never planted before. Okay. And if they say, hey, come on our staff, then we'll plant you in 3 years. Woo! Not real unless they've done it before. If they've done it before, then I trust them. If they haven't done it before, then it's manipulative. They're just trying to get you on staff because you're solid. Okay. So just listen to me now. Okay. I've seen it happen a few times. So I just want to say it. All right. Not, but the guys that are parents tend to be great parents, so
Mhm.
that's just my advice on that.
I love
Man,
it.
so many great thoughts. I come back and underscore what you talked about of the be well and then the build well.
Mhm.
Both sides are vital. I think that for ministry at large, it wouldn't just apply to church plants. It'd be apply to starting a young adult ministry, starting a campus ministry. God's given you a dream. To a certain extent, the dream is free. Some assembly is going to be required, but we're called to equip the saints for the work of the ministry. So it is surrounding
Mhm.
ourselves with just a dream team. And I would just say one of my favorite leadership quotes in life comes from John Maxwell. And he says that leaders know the way, they go the way, and they show the way. And talk is so cheap. It's crazy how people they're really quick to tell you this is everything that we're gonna do, and this is our 5-year plan and our 10-year plan. But
Or they're bought in with you, right?
and
And believe me, I work with a lot of visionary people. So our company is working with church planters constantly. They're very visionary. They're very strong leaders. But I will tell you this, your ability to be promoted is directly correlated with your ability to be humble. Like, period. Period.
yeah,
So it's actually not the most confident church planter that wins. It's the most humble church planter that wins. And here's why. The most humble church planter is the one that asks the most questions and asks for the most amount of help. And they're the ones who grow the biggest teams. They raise the most money because why? They're so humble. Listen, here's my leadership quote for the day. Okay. If you listen to me say anything today, just listen to this. All right, everybody. Here's the deal. We all live in the milieu of our culture. So even though we're like, hey, we're Christians, we're living for God, he's God and I'm not, there's the temptation always for us to, oh, maybe I'm pretty good at this. And you get prideful about certain things, and pride comes before the fall. It's really true. So this is something I'm actually putting on I'm actually getting it printed out and putting it in my office so I can look at it all the time. But it says this: you are not special. Right there. And then underneath it, byline, all the rules of life apply to you. All right. So listen, that is the way you got to live. Like, oh, I'm special. I don't need to go, to that training. I'm special. I can do it I'm special. I'm the exception to the rule. You are not the exception to any rule. Period. Like the more humble you get and realize, listen, like God has laid out principles for life, principles for business, principles for entrepreneurship, principles for living this life, the more you humble yourself under the authority of God and say, he is God, I am not, that's where success is in my mind. And so any area in life where I'm struggling or there's no success or there's a block, it's because I'm prideful and I have to humble myself and ask for help and get a mentor and go to the next spot. So like, I would just say to any young guy that's thinking, I want to plant a church, if you want to be good at it, get humble now. And don't let God humble you, right? So it's like, that's a much better place to be. Or just, life will humble you. Consequences will humble you. You know what I mean? It's just welcome to life, right? So that's my big, encouragement. Wow, John's so encouraging. He told me, well, my mom said I was special, but you're not. You're not. So, you're just like everybody else. So just follow God's word. It's the way to go.
yeah, received 100%, man. And I think that something I want to come back to that you had brought up, actually, we haven't talked about and probably given it justice, but inflation is happening in the world around us.
For sure.
And this is going to apply to every listener, everyone who's leading, everyone who's just like, if you pay bills and put gas in a car or pay a mortgage or rent, like you're feeling it with diapers or whatever your expenses look like. But Eric Hook is a pretty interesting follow on Twitter. He has like, I help pastors get jobs.com. I think he's going to be a guest later this August.
I follow him. He's cool. Yeah.
I like following him on X, but he just shared a tweet and he talks about the story of two millennial couples who moved into a major city, any major city. And he says, these are the stories. Do you know this one?
No, say it.
Okay. So he said John and Jill have a child in 2016, another in 2018. In 2020, they buy a $340,000 house at 3.1% interest. They pay $1,500 a month for their mortgage. Their friends, Bob and Betty, have their first child in 2020, second in 22, buy in 2023 a similar home built by the same builder in a neighborhood at $440K, 7.5% interest rate, and they pay $2,800 a month.
Correct.
And then he continues to parse it out about childcare. And because the first couple, their kids are older, their kids are in school, they're not paying childcare, the younger couple. And so he arrived at this second couple might have $4,300 in family expenses more in just 3 years' time, 4 years' time. And I like that he brought that up because, well, I mean, we happened to move into our home about 2019. A,
Good timing.
a youth pastor moved down the street 2 weeks ago. I don't know what he paid. I don't know what their interest rate is or was, but I go, man, probably close to that case study.
Right.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And so I just think that this is going to impact staffing, the cost of the individual, the cost of the church, everything. One of the cool things that Jon-Michael Sherman, thanks to you and Rocket Media, you guys are offering the Church Plant Masterclass for 50% off for
Yeah,
our
absolutely.
listeners.
And you know what? To be fair, I've had so much fun today. Let's just give it to your audience for free. So I'll change your code and we'll just give it to everybody for free so they can
Stop.
enjoy it. So that's our gift to you guys for listening and being this far along in the podcast at this point. If you've
That's
listened to me this long, you
awesome.
should get it for free, just as a I'm sorry to you guys. But yeah, we'll give it away for free and I'll give you the new code. What is it? What was your code? Young adult
It was
YAF 50? Let's just do
YAT.
YAF 100. I'll just put YAF 100
It
so
was
you guys can do that.
YAT
Oh,
for young
YAT.
adults.
There you go.
YAT 100.
YAF.
When
There you
you
go.
hit the churchplantmasterclass.com, thank you for that. That's going to bless a lot of listeners. I've gone through it. I've watched it. I think you'll find value, whether you're in a church plant or thinking about it someday. But hey, speaking of having fun, you up for the 5 and 5?
Absolutely. One comment quickly on inflation. This is super interesting. Okay. This is my random thought. I just want to encourage everybody. Like, if Jesus affects the way that you do your family, if Jesus affects the way that you do your finances, if Jesus affects the way that you do discipleship, Jesus can also affect your polity. And so I would say, hey, Jesus, like, how does your word affect the way I view politics and policy and everything? And I think that's an important place to start for every Christian to see, like, the word of God does affect my polity. And I think it's important because, when you print 40% of your currency over a 4-year stretch, it devalues the dollar in a decent amount, right? And by the way, guess what? Both political parties are totally guilty. So I would say, like, hold on a second. My wife is texting me. You could edit this out. Did you hear that ping every time someone
No,
texts?
no.
Oh, thank God. I was like, ping, ping, ping.
We just saw the thumbs up. That randomly happens. It's like last time we had
Sorry. Hold
fireworks
on
at
a
the end of
second.
one of our podcasts.
I
So
know. You must have said something really good.
Hey,
thumbs
I am in a podcast
yeah.
right now.
Well, are you ready for the 5 and 5? I got the first question ready for you.
Okay, go for it.
All right. So, do you have a favorite book that you've read this year so far?
So this is going to be a terrible answer. Because I'm so busy, I'm not someone who's a book reader. I'm a podcast listener. So for me, like, audiobooks and podcasts are the way that I function. I probably listen to hours and hours of, like, audiobooks and, like, podcasts. So I think maybe it's just a reflection of how stressful my life is as a business owner, but I listen to just a lot of sports. So for me, it's been a lot of comedy and sports and stand-up comedians. So, I mean, I really enjoyed Shane Gillis's stand-up routine on Netflix that just came out. I think that was great. Not very Christian. How about a Christian one? Let's think. Oh, I don't know. What's that guy from Tennessee, the Tennessee kid? What's his name? That comedian.
Oh,
He's so
John,
good.
John Chris.
Bargatze.
Oh,
Oh, John Christensen is great too, but Nate Bargatze. Go watch Nate Bargatze. So you and your wife will enjoy watching Nate Bargatze. So that's more fun than a book, I guess. I feel like when I was a pastor, I read books voraciously, and now I'm just like in this world of business, and I want to go play golf or, like, renew myself a little bit. So anyway, that's my terrible answer.
Oh, that might answer the next question.
okay. What's a hobby you're into for fun?
Yeah, great question. I golf as much as I can, and that's how I relax. I played golf. We graduated from North Central, so I golfed there, and
I
so
know.
yeah, true story. I bought a net and I put it in my house with a mat. So I've got my 2-year-old hitting on it and I hit on it. And so it's we live in Florida, we can go outside, but we're hitting inside too. It's not a hobby, it's an obsession. So
You're a good golfer. I mean, we're friends, but I followed your Instagram for years, and I see your swings, and I'm like that. I'm not that good at golf.
no one's good at golf. We all just play it,
Well, that's all right. Well, that's okay. We'll pick up pickleball then. All right, question
Yeah.
number 3. If you could ask Josiah and myself one question today, what would you want to know?
Well, it's the question the audience wants to know is are we done at 2? Are we moving to 3 or 4? What are we doing here? I mean, it's you got a really even number. This is a nice time to be done. I mean, take it from we have 6 kids, or sorry, 4 kids. So there's 6 of us.
Yep.
So when we had 3, it was an odd number, and it just
Yeah,
couldn't do it.
God.
So we had to go to 4. So like, especially when you're at Disney, you got like everyone's got to have a buddy they ride with on the ride. So that's the question I would say. Are we where are we at? You can say no comment. That's also allowed. I mean,
Yeah.
obviously.
We have a comment, and the fun one is you're like, I thought you meant like the Joe Rogan question where you're like, are we going till 2? Because you're on East Coast time.
Oh no, I'm saying, are you going from
I
2
know.
kids to 3 kids to 4 kids?
And no,
Oh, not like, am I done yet? No, that's funny.
You're like, I thought you wanted to do second part, like go 3 hours on this pod.
Good.
But I mean, we've said one at a time, and we love being parents. Micah had a little bit of a
Near-death experience.
Yeah, after
Oh my gosh,
of our
That's the
second
best
one.
way to say it.
we're so glad you're still here with us. Oh my
Me
gosh, yeah.
too.
That'll make it a little bit harder. Yeah, I could see
Yeah.
that for sure.
So just and the crazy thing is that we actually had a friend who was having their 3rd, and she actually passed during a complication. So I was like, Josiah, that is such an unfortunate story that could have been us. So really taking life one day at a time and the brevity of life, and like we have 2 healthy children. I'm healthy and alive. If God says yes, go ahead. Like if we feel to go ahead, we're more than happy to, have that conversation with him and see what God does. But also the mindfulness of like, we're happy with where we are too. So
there's a contentness and a gratitude that we
Totally.
are living
Yeah.
in.
Yeah.
That's a good place to be. That's a good place to be. Yeah. I feel that a lot with number 4. So we feel very content.
Very content.
We'll be exhausted.
Well, here's that question number 4. If your family was going to vacation somewhere and you could bring one snack, where would you want to go? What would you bring for a snack?
Well, I mean, we live in Florida now, so we're annual pass holders to Disney World. So we get to live that dream, and we get to go buy those snacks, and it's a great life. So with the kids, I mean, whatever festival's going on at Epcot, we're going around the world and we're grabbing snacks all around the world. And so that is really fun. If it's just me and Becky, to be fair, it's me and it's her, it's Mexico, it's Riviera Maya. And my snack is a nice Cuban cigar, to be fair. That's what it is for me. So I'm on the beach and I'm just relaxing. That's where I'm at. So that's my happy place. So we'll go back there as quick as I can. So, but we got 4 kids. The little one had her hard to travel with now.
Yeah, no doubt. Okay, here's a 5th and final question. What is the best advice you have ever received that could resonate with our audience today?
Yeah, with young adult pastors, you have to have a little bit longer. You have to have vision beyond your nose and beyond today and beyond this week and beyond last fall launch. The best young adult pastor I know, he's in his 60s now. Jeff Ballantyne, an incredible, history of being faithful in young adult ministry. But my fatal flaw is carrot before horse. I have caught that carrot a million times because I've always achieved and exceeded goals, but the carrot kept moving and I never was able to be thankful or grateful or enjoy, or it was always constant achievement dissatisfaction. Jeff sat me down and he said, John, I know you want to do all of these big things. I know you want to do all of them yesterday. And it's you need to have a bigger vision of who God is and what he can do. And he said, you just have to, he said this, I'll never forget it. He said, it's really cool what God will do in a year. It's incredible what he does in 5. And it was his way of saying, be patient, chill out, and do the good work that you're doing every day, but know that it takes time, it compounds over time, and God does incredible stuff over long periods of time. So, you might be frustrated where you're at right now, but just trust God and keeping faithful, right? Obedience in the same direction, right? So I would encourage everybody to don't give up, don't quit, keep going, keep rolling, keep being faithful, and you'll have that reward. Little by little, he makes it grow. See a pattern here as we kind of go through?
Good.
There it is.
Good.
I love it. We just had a gal, Stephanie Mae Wilson, who hosts Girls Night Out, huge podcast, and she had a book coming out. And so we were talking to her, and I just said, "Hey, how'd you hit like 7 or 10 million downloads, whatever she was at?" And she's like, never went viral. She goes, haven't found any elevator. She goes, we planted, like, to use that term, 7 years ago, this seed, and we've just been watering it and growing it and taking one step up the staircase. And that, like, that was not the answer I was expecting. I think I even am so guilty of what's the hack? What's the shortcut?
I can't have the elevator. Can I at least get the escalator?
It's true. And people will call our company thinking we're a silver bullet. And I immediately know we're a bad fit, because I'm just like, the client fits for us a lot of time are people who are like, hey, we're not looking to grow this thing to 10,000 overnight. We're looking to get there over time. And I think that's a great way to be. It's a great way to be 100%.
Man, just because I'm on to go overtime,
There's no time with me, man. We're friends, we're family. You just keep going.
Carey Nieuwhof had George Kamel, who's a friend of ours, on his podcast, and didn't know this, but George Kamel 10 years ago wrote the show notes for episode 1 of the Carey Nieuwhof Leadership Podcast. So it was a full circle moment for them. But I found it fascinating to hear like his career journey of looks like an overnight success, but he's been on the team at Dave Ramsey for 11 years.
Right.
You know what I mean? And so I think what I'm just saying is that point of patience, it applies to me. That point of patience, it applies to the listener. And just the value of not giving up, the value of trusting God, going with God, staying a while, unpacking your bags. Jon-Michael, this is a fun conversation. We're grateful for you, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. And to all the young adult pastors, leaders that are listening, I just want to encourage you guys out there that this may not be the job you have for the rest of your life, but treat it with that same level of respect and honor. And then when you jump into the next thing, do it again. Just go wholeheartedly into everything. Don't let anything from your past hold you back from your present and your future. Some of the greatest leaders in life, they started something, didn't work, started another thing, that one worked, then started with that, didn't work, but they kept moving forward. So keep failing forward, keep being faithful, man, you'll have a great return.
Oh, thank you so much. And if you're listening, if you want more information about the Church Plant Masterclass, or if you just want to go straight to the code, type YAT100 and you will get a free access to all of Jon-Michael Sherman's information about church planting and how you can start and begin with the end in mind. Ultimately, that is the ultimate goal, is to begin everything with the end in mind and how we can glorify God in the process. So this is the Young Adults Today podcast.
Man, we enjoyed that conversation so much, and we want to give you a free gift. It's an ebook, 10 Steps to Starting a Successful Young Adult Ministry. It's linked in the show notes for free as a listener of this podcast, and all you need to do is visit www.youngadults.today. For you, for your pastors, for your leadership teams, for your volunteers, 10 steps to starting a successful young adult ministry when you visit youngadults.today. Thanks for tuning in to the show. We'll see you back here next week.